Hey guys, welcome back. So on the last video we left off where I had to take a break so I can put the styles in a separate folder, and I'm sorry, in a repository that you can go get it there and copy and paste it and put it here. I did that because this is a lot to walk you through if we're gonna do it in the video together. So I figured, since we're gonna be covering a lot of the CSS eventually excuse me, it's a lot easier if you just go copy paste it here for now, just to get us going with the HTML part and get the rest of it built up. And then eventually there will be a section in the tutorial where we're going to visit these styles and create our own version of the CSS, but using SCSS. So that way, since so we don't spend too much time on things that we don't need to right now and get confused, it's better if I just post it there and then you can grab it and do so. Now if you missed where you need to go get it from, which I explained in the last video, that I put it in the comments, so I'll show you where that is. So just give me a second here to grab it, and now we'll be able to show you. Alright, so this is the link that I posted. I posted this in my GitHub account, and this is the styles folder here, the styles file here, and you just basically just like this, copy and you paste it over there. You can click raw if you want to, that way in case you have any issues picking up copying and pasting, you just grab it here, Control C, and then go into the application, Control P to paste it. Eventually we're going to talk about GitHub and how you can push code to GitHub and how to create your own account in GitHub and things like that. GitHub is an excellent repository, online tool that you can use for yourself, and I recommend every developer to have their own. In fact, there are many situations where the job that you're going to have is going to have a repository of their own, or a GitHub account of their own, where they store a lot of their code privately, and so you kind of need to be knowledgeable about how do you handle GitHub and how do you push your code into GitHub to make it so that all the other developers in your company can retrieve it from there too. So it's a great place to store all your stuff in there. Okay, so but we'll talk about that eventually. So going back here to the index HTML, where we're building the navigation bar, I started talking about how building basically this logo part here, which right now is just regular words, but this could also be an image, but right now we're using words. One thing that I actually kind of skipped, and I shouldn't have, is these classes here in the nav bar. If you notice, the application that we're building has, for right now, it has this light background, and that's not what we're eventually going to be building. And I'm going to bring our original one here, and you see how it's dark. So now you're thinking, well, what happened? I mean, if I already put all these styles over here, how come is it not getting dark? Well, the reason why is because we are using the navbar classes that we took from the code snippets from Bootstrap, remember? So I'm going to talk a little bit about these right here and what they mean, because they have a lot to do with what we're with the way that this shows here. So the navbar class, which is the main class here, is the general class that targets the element in itself, or the whole navbar structure. Okay, the navbar expand large is a class, a Bootstrap class, that is made for responsive design, so that it shows as a big navbar, and when you make it smaller in a browser or in a mobile device or something like that, then it turns into the responsive navbar type, which has a different menu here, as you can see, and that part is working right. Okay, so I'll open this back up, and then you have the navbar light and the background light. So these right here are color classes that are reserved classes in Bootstrap, and the navbar light basically says make my text dark if the navbar is a light background navbar, and then this right here, which says make the background light. So these are the ones that we're going to change for now. These right here we're going to leave the way they are. So first thing we're going to do is, instead of using navbar light, we're going to use navbar dark, and I'm going to change that right now and save it. As you can see now, some of the text has already gone light because it is expecting the background to also be dark. So we're going to make the background dark and save that. And now we're looking at the actual dark navbar that we're looking for. But if you notice, ours is a little bit different. It has a little bit more stuff with it, and that's because this right here is using strictly Bootstrap classes and nothing else. Anything that you design is going to have these ground classes from your framework, starting classes, right? And that is okay to have, but you still want to customize everything that you have. You shouldn't really have to use anything from the CSS framework the way it is. You still want to design it in your own way. I mean, sometimes what they have fits and you want to leave it the way it is, and that's okay, but most times you want to change it. So I created my own class called custom navbar. Custom navbar, and if you notice here, you should be able to see it right here. This one right here, custom navbar. Don't worry about this header here. In fact, I should delete that because we're not really using that one, but I'm not gonna delete it right this second. I'll make sure that I'll clean that up later if I have to, but for right now it's not really gonna bother you. So this custom navbar is the one that is making the background, specifically the type of background color that I want, specifically the type of color on the text that I want, and the bottom border here, and the width of it, all that stuff. So applying that to it and hitting Control Save, if we go back now to our application, now you can see how things are now starting to look a lot like what we're looking for. See that? Alright, so that's great. It's good stuff, good stuff. Alright, so next thing is we continue down, since we already set this up here for the logo. We're gonna well, first let's just go ahead and close these here and close this here, and then just keep the nav only open, just the nav only open. So now if you notice, one thing here is this right here goes all the way to the edge, but my application has it centered with a little bit of a space in the sides. This is a preference thing. Some people like it that it goes all the way over and it accepts more real estate for your application, and that's okay. If that's your style, that's alright. You could leave it just the way it is, but me personally, I have it so that it's centered a little bit in the center, along with everything else. As you can see, it has some space on the sides as well. So this is just kind of my style, at least for this particular design. So how did I do that? Is by making use of the container class. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap everything inside of a container class. So we're gonna use, since this is not a semantic element, a container is not like navbar or header, footer. These are semantic elements that they are made for, and I explained this already. A header tag is a semantic element that is used for what? a header, right? So since a container is just a regular div, is pretty much ambiguous, then you can use a regular div for this and then give it the class of container. And we talked about, again, some of these classes that are for you to use. A container is a class in Bootstrap that is made to center all your elements in the middle, like this, to center in the middle, and depending on the size of your browser, it will adjust accordingly and always stick to the center on the right size that you need. Okay, so I have my container here, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and grab everything that I have. Make sure you don't grab that nav tagging here, and I'm gonna go ahead and drag all of that in there, and I'm gonna control save so Prettier can format it for me. I'm gonna minimize this stuff again so it's out of my way for now. Minimize all this so you can see it. So now you can see the container class is there. It's already saved. So if we look at the application, it's now in the center, but everything is looking a little weird, like it doesn't fit, right? Well, for one, we don't need this form. This form doesn't need to be there. Some of these links need to be changed. So we're gonna continue down, and eventually we're gonna get to that part. So let's go down the button here. So what is this button? This is the responsive menu toggler. So this is what makes this button show up here. Okay, so we're going to use this. So we're gonna leave that the way it is, and this class is here is basically so that the navbar toggler can be styled the way it is. It is a button, so you want to keep it as in that type. And the data toggle is what it will do. Basically, it will toggle the collapse feature so that it can do this collapsing here that you see there. And the target is basically what is going to target, what is going to open. Okay, and if you can see this right here with this little hashtag, this hashtag represents an ID. This is targeting a menu that is going to be injected, or that is going to be used as a target for it to show when it's expanded on the, when the button is clicked. And if you notice, this ID right here, navbar supported content, is used on my actual menu item here. So now when I click on this and it opens, it looks for this ID, and then it shows in there whatever is inside that ID, which is here, this information here. Okay, the area expanded is false because you want it to open originally when you open the browser, you want it to open with it collapsed. You don't want it to open like this. You want it to open collapsed and then be already available on click for it to open when you click it. Okay, so we're gonna leave this pretty much the way it is, and then this inside here is the actual toggler icon, which is these 3 bars in here. Okay, all right, so we're gonna need that, and we're gonna close it and leave it there. Let's see if I can just move this in here for now so I can close it. Eventually Prettier is gonna move it back out of place again, but for now. Alright, so now we're getting into the actual menu part. Okay, so the menu is using the collapse class, and the collapse class is basically saying that it's going to be collapsed. I believe if I put an expanded here, perhaps, or maybe in the word in, then it opens it by default. So make sure that you don't. Make sure you just leave it exactly the way it is, and Bootstrap will give you a better information and documentation on this particular object. So have this collapse class, and this navbar collapse class, and these are the classes that make that menu react when you open it or close it. So leave that the way it is. Now this UL here is a list. Basically it's an unordered list, and it's this list of items here. So this is basically a bullet list. Okay, it's a bullet list, but is styled so it doesn't show the bullet list, so it doesn't show the little dot next to it, and so they don't show on top of each other but next to each other. So the CSS is in charge of that stuff. The CSS is the one that makes it look like this instead of looking like a bulleted list. Okay, and that CSS that makes that happen is in here in navbar nav, and that's in here already somewhere. Navbar collapse. These are all your classes for. So these are all classes that you're gonna need that are making all that stuff happen. Okay, and then MR auto, which means basically margin right auto. So right now, because it says MR auto, it floats this to the left. It floats it to the left, so it flushes it with the leftmost component, which is this one. It floats it right next to that, or stick it right next to that, and then it tells anything to the right, give it an automatic margin. We don't want that. We want it to actually float to the right. So in order to float to the right, you actually need ML auto. So we're gonna change that. That way it is on the leftmost part of the screen, and then the margin left is automatically calculated. So we're gonna make that change there, and then inside we're gonna be building all the other items. But before we do that, just this form here, we're gonna need to delete that because we're not gonna use that. And then if we do this, it's gonna make a lot more sense how this margin left auto will work. So we're gonna save, check it, and here we go. Now it's all the way to the left, just like our application. It's all the way to the left, and everything is starting to look a lot better now. All right, so I'm looking at cross-reference here. Okay, so after all, it looks like this background dark here is giving me this off black type of color, okay, which is not what we want. So since we are already making our own black right here, our own background, that's not really necessary. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that out and save it, and here we go. Now we actually get the black we need, so that's fine. Alright, so we're gonna keep this here, we're gonna keep going, and then we're gonna get to the actual menu items. So skipping a few of these here, I'm gonna skip these two here and go to the one that says drop down. So this drop down navbar item. So if you notice some of the other LIs right here with navbar item, which is what makes each one look the way it does, but this one here, it says it has a drop down class cascaded with it. That makes it so that it opens and that navbar thing that we're not getting to show here because we updated the CSS to make it different. So so since we're not going to use that, we're going to go ahead and actually delete this drop down. But if you do need to use a drop down, this is how you do it. Okay, you build an LI and you put a drop down, you attach these classes to the key element that is going to open it, that is going to toggle it, and then inside you're going to create a div with a drop down menu, and make sure that the drop down menu ID right here and right here are the same, and all of this stuff is going to open, and you're going to be able to see your items down here. So eventually we're going to talk about this whenever we get to it in another tutorial, but for right now I don't want to spend time on it because we're not going to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that one since we're not going to use that, and then we're going to work on these right here. In fact, I'm actually going to delete them all because I want you to not get confused. So we're going to create one at a time. So the first one is going to be a regular LI with a nav item and another class that says active. That's what turns it into that red one. So what it does is basically makes it active depending on the page that we're on. Which, by the way, mine is actually not working the way it should. Well, never mind that. We're gonna get ours to actually look the way it should be. So this active class is attached to the napper item, and basically in the CSS is made told to say, okay, if it's an napper item, make it white, but if it's active, make it red. Okay. Alright, so inside of that, you're going to have a hyperlink, because that's the only way that you can make, not the only way, but it's the most common way that you can make a button go to another page. So if I click on this, it should take me somewhere, and that is done with a hyperlink element, which is an A element. It has a class, so it can be styled, and then right now the reference is that. So I'm going to change that reference. So what is a hashtag? Let's just start with that. A hashtag reference is basically a refresh. It's going to refresh your screen every time you click this, right? We don't want this. We want this home right here to take you to the home page of your root, to your index file. So the way that you target that is by putting that. This is the beginning of your path in your domain. So we're gonna leave it that way. So that way we know that to take you to the main page every time you click the home page right here. Then we have this this class here. This is for screen readers only. So this is kind of something that Bootstrap adds for accessibility purposes. A lot like other things that we're going to eventually see, like area labeled and things like that. If you care about accessibility, which accessibility, what it means is how a blind person is going to be able to use your website. And yes, blind people do use the internet. They use it with a special tool that is called a screen reader that is connected, and that they connect with when they're trying to cruise the internet. And the screen reader basically reads what's on the screen to them, and it tells them you know, how many tabs they need to tap to get to a button where they need to click in order for something to happen. And when they're there, it needs to tell them, okay, you are in this page and you're reading this particular, you know, you're right now on top of this particular thing that is called home, you know. So there is a lot going on with accessibility that we're not going to cover, obviously, because it's a little bit more advanced if you ever had to deal with that. So we can leave it there. It doesn't really matter. Leave it there for reference. We can take it off. It's up to you. But basically, this is just a class that it says don't display this on the screen, because this is only for screen readers. You know, a matter of fact, it would probably be a good idea to just delete it. That way, it makes everything easier to show. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong one. So I'm just gonna go ahead. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. Alright, save that so it's right next to it. You know what? And that is a lot cleaner, you know, for you to read too. So that's good. Alright, so now that we created that, we're gonna create a few more. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and highlight this, copy it, and paste one more, and one more, because we're gonna eventually end up using 4 of them. We're gonna name this one about. We're gonna name this one programs, and contact. And then in here, because they're going to go to the files that we will eventually create, this one is going to go to the about HTML file, and this one is going to go to the programs HTML file, and the contact HTML file. Right now, if you click on them, nothing's gonna happen because the files don't exist. We're gonna create those eventually, but just for now you want to just keep it there. Now another thing you want to make sure is if we're working with the index, which is the home page, so this is the one that takes the active class. These right here are not the active class right now, so we want to make sure that we delete those from here. Now when we create the other pages and we bring this navbar over to these other pages, then we'll take it from here and attach it to the page that we're working with. Okay, so I'm gonna save that and check out my application, and here we are. We got the right pages now, so now we're starting to look a lot like our application here. Alright, so we're good there. So now we can go ahead and click this and click this to make it smaller so you can actually get out of our site for now. And alright, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to leave this navbar actually open. Okay, I mean leave it alone, and we're gonna go into the rest of the stuff that is inside, such as the showcase and the newsletter and the boxes and all that stuff. Eventually we're gonna leave those alone, but for right now what we're going to do is I'm going to make a comment here with control / and call this main body. This is a comment. This could be anything you want, so I could put something like that. It won't really matter. Okay, and copy this, hit enter, and then here do this. Okay, this here is basically a block that I want to look at later, and this is a good practice for whenever you want to come back to something. Or let me just delete this. Whenever you want to come back to something, or whenever you want to make a distinction where something starts and something ends, you know, and you kind of want to comment it out so you can understand it later, or another developer that is going to take a code from you is going to understand what the things mean, or you know, where is the body, where is the navbar. So it's always a good idea to comment the beginning and the end of your block element. So you basically put a comment line, another comment line, you name it up here, and then here you name it again, but then you put this slash over here, which basically means the end of. Other people have different ways to do this. There's no hard set rule on how you do this stuff. This is the way I like to do it. That way any code that I have in here, people will know when they come and see my code, they will say, okay, so everything between this right here is code related to the main body. So I'm gonna go ahead and put div class here that eventually we will remove. We don't need this right this second. I mean, we don't need this eventually. We just need it right this second, so we can move on to the rest of the application. So div class, what am I want to call this? Temporary body. Let's call it temp. Temp body. The reason why I'm calling it temp body is because it's gonna be temporarily done. It's not gonna be something that we're going to keep there. Eventually we're gonna remove this. Okay, but this is just so I can now create the footer in the bottom. Alright, so now let's create the footer real quick and explain, and then this is another semantic tag. Remember we talked about whenever you use something that has a specific use and it's not an ambiguous element that could be anything, you want to use a semantic tag that HTML5 has already built for it. So since we're building a footer, it will only make sense that you're going to use the footer semantic tag. So we're gonna do that, and then inside we're going to, if we pay attention here to our footer, you can see that everything is in the center, right? So as I said above, we're gonna use a container class. So div class container, gonna do that. So now we're gonna introduce a couple of classes here that are also in the grid, and the Bootstrap grid classes, which I'm hoping that you guys read through it. We're gonna add a row in there, and inside a row we're gonna add 2 columns, and each column is gonna be divided into a width of 6 on each of them. That way when you do that, this doesn't get stuck to this, but it has its own partition here and its own partition here. And if I click on this. I'm just gonna undock this so you can see it. So pay attention to this part here. I'm in my footer. Notice when I hover over this 6 block, you see in the bottom here it gets highlighted, and then if I hover over the next one, it gets highlighted. So you see how it's taking up all that space. It's dividing my container into 2 equal parts. This is the actual container, the part that you see grayed out, not the orange, the part you see grayed out. And then the row inside the container, and then inside the row you have 2 classes, and they each are taking 6 parts and 6 parts. Remember, it has to add up to 12. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna do this inside the container. We're going to create another div, class row, and then inside we're going to create our 2 partitions. So if it's going to be if they're going to be divided by 2 columns, like I said, they're going to have 2 column SM6. Okay, so break time here, right? Let's break here for a second. Why SM? Why not medium? Or why not large? This right here is what sets the maximum screen that this 6 is going to start working at. If we put medium here, it means that anything from medium and above is going to do a 6. It's going to break it into 2 elements, and then anything below it, it will act responsibly. It will look like a 12 span. It will look across, blocked across the screen, and we don't want it to do that. We don't want it to be stacked on top of each other on the on the SM size, which is the iPad, because since this is a fairly small footer, this right here can fit in an iPad just fine. See that? It fits in an iPad just fine. So no need for it to break so soon. So I want it to still be a 6 in the iPad, or tablet I should say. This should still say SM so that it can still be a 6 size on the tablet. Now anything below SM, which is the smartphone, which is going to be this, anything below the SM, it will ignore the 6 and it will make it automatically 12. It will make it across the board, stack on top of each other. So it will look like that, on top of each other. Okay. Alright, so SM, and then I'm just gonna copy that because I'm gonna need 2 of them, like that. I'm gonna bring this one down here, and this one right here, and then inside my first one I'm gonna put my copyright part, which is going to be inside of a paragraph tag, and that's going to say fitness and lifestyle, fitness and lifestyle, copyright. Alright, 2019. So if you notice, I have this copyright symbol in here. There are many ways that you can create symbols, and there's plenty of information of this online that you can search, but basically any symbol uses the @ and then in here you're gonna put the kind of symbol that it is, which is a copyright, so it's copy, and then click like that. In fact, this is not considered a letter, it's considered a symbol. So that is, you're gonna use this to make sure it knows it's a symbol. Which kind of symbol is it? It's an ampersand. So you're gonna use amp and then close it with that, and that's going to create an ampersand. This is going to create the copyright, the C. If it was registered, a register mark, it's gonna use reg, like that. If it's a trademark, I believe is trade. Yeah, it's gonna be trade, like that, if it's a trademark. So we're gonna make a copy copyright. Alright, that's all there is on the left side, and then on the right side we're going to do a hyperlink. So this hyperlink is an external hyperlink, so it's a class, but no, what am I doing? We already did the class above, I'm sorry. So we're gonna put the href for where it's gonna go when you click it. Every hyperlink should have some type of way of taking you somewhere when you click it. So we're gonna leave that for right now. We're gonna fill that up. We're gonna have a target for this specific one. We're gonna need one. We're gonna come back to that. We're gonna close it, and we're gonna call it visit our Facebook. Okay, so this hyperlink is gonna take you to Facebook, right? So obviously here we want to put www. We're just gonna put facebook.com. I'm not gonna put my real Facebook in there. If you want to put the HTTP, sometimes that's fine. It's okay. You can just leave it the way it is right now, and that's okay. So if you notice up here, we have a hyperlink, right, with an href of this. Actually, shouldn't be that. That's gonna refresh the screen. Right, there we go. With a hyperlink, we have a hyperlink here that takes you to the home page, and in our menu we have a few more that are taking you to that path in our route, but we haven't created those yet. But they're gonna take you to the about, to the programs, and the contact. Now down here I have one that doesn't really take you to a file, but it takes you somewhere outside of your website. That's okay. This you can do, but anytime you do something like this, consider using a target. Okay, if you don't use a target, whenever anyone clicks on here, it's going to replace your window, and it's going to take that person to that place that you sent them to, but that's it, that left your site. You don't want people to leave your site. What you want is you want people to be able to click on this link and open in a separate tab. So for that to happen, you're going to create in your target, you're going to say underscore blank. Now anytime that someone clicks on this visit our Facebook link, instead of replacing the screen that they're on with Facebook, it's going to open Facebook on a different tab, and the user can always, you know, find your website still in the tab that they had it initially. Okay, and I think that's all there is to the footer. It's a very simple footer. So how is it read and all that stuff is obviously because we attached those the CSS inside our style here, and it's targeting the footer. So I'm gonna click save, and if we go here, we can see that the footer here. Now you notice how this footer obviously is not down here. And that's fine. And the reason why this is happening is because the footer is reactive to the content inside. And remember how I did this here? That's because since it doesn't have any content, the footer is going to be stuck to the navbar. There's nothing here that it shows, so therefore, you know, it's going to show up there. So this right here is what I wanted to use temporarily, and in order to do that, I'm gonna use some temporary code in there, some temporary stuff. So if we go to Lorem Ipsum, and this is something that a lot of us use all the time. Lorem Ipsum, which is in loremipsum.io, is fake language. It's a placeholder text that we use to put in websites so that we can show what text would look like if it had content, if it had something in there. You're gonna do this a lot for your clients because not all the time you wanna, well, actually almost always you don't know exactly what your client products and services is all about, right? Only the client knows their business and their services and their stuff better than you. Even if you get use cases and you get the user stories and everything from them, and you know exactly what they're all about, and they have explained it to you a million times, it's still not your business. You still don't have the passion to write about it and to comment about it, and you know, and to be a representative of their service and their product. So in order to do that, what you normally would do is that you will get content from the client. But before you get content from the client, which that takes a long time sometimes, you want to show them what your text is going to look like, right? What their text is going to look like inside the website until they give you something. So that's what Lorem Ipsum is all about. It provides a way for you to copy and paste something in there. Now, sure, you can just create your own blah blah blah, but what are you really going to put there? I mean, whatever you put there, it has to be something that doesn't really mean anything. Otherwise, you're just going to babble about whatever. All right, so we're going to generate here one that has 5 paragraphs. That's fine. And generate, and here we go. I got all this text here, so I can come down. Where is it? Or up maybe? Okay, copy. I'm gonna copy it, and I'm gonna come over here, and then in the body I'm gonna put a paragraph tag, and I'm gonna paste it in there. Now this is gonna look all smushed when I put it in, right? These spaces right here are not gonna show up. So I'm gonna do a break here for a break line and another one. Tab this over. Oops. Tab this over. There we go. And then I'm gonna copy that, paste it after every paragraph tag. We're gonna get rid of this eventually, okay? This is only temporarily. So now if we come here, there we go. Now we can see how the footer is already going where it needs to go. In fact, I'm gonna put one more. Open that and the tag. And there. Okay. So now you see how the footer is actually in the bottom. Okay. Alright, and then the last thing before we go is, if you notice, a lot of the stuff here is kind of covered. You can see all the way on the top, right? And the reason why is because this is using the sticky top, which actually I didn't bring it up. I didn't bring it to it. Okay. Yep, I didn't. So there is a class called Sticky Top. Okay. And I know that's kind of funny, but it's a Bootstrap class that reacts to whenever a navbar is sticky to the top of the browser. Okay. So I just want to make sure that I bring that up there, because that could be reactive to a lot of other stuff that eventually we're going to put down here, especially when we add this showcase in here. Okay, so for right now, don't worry about this letters being covered under here. It's because we don't have anything in here designed yet. This is all basically temporarily, just to create this page. I only added this in here so you can see how this will go down to the ground, to the bottom. One thing that I actually did forget is the icon for the visit our Facebook. If you remember from Font Awesome how we set up the icon, so if we go here to fontawesome.com, and I told you guys to set up your own account here, so that way you can start your your icons and things like that. So that should have given you, or you should have been able to use your own Font Awesome kit, right? So once you get your Font Awesome kit from start, you're gonna click on here from your kits, create a use this kit, right? You're gonna click on your kit there. You're gonna see this tag here, right? So this right here is what you're gonna end up using. So you're gonna grab that, copy this kit code, and you're gonna come to the bottom. Actually, this is one that you can actually keep on the top, even though it's a Sprint it's a script, I'm sorry, even though it's a script, you still want to keep this on the top, because it's not a script for functionality, it's a script for design. So you want the icons to show up before anything else. So you do want to keep this on the top actually. And then you can save that, and then down here in the footer, where is it? In the footer, right between the closing tag of the H tag and the visit our Facebook, we're going to add an icon. So we're gonna go to icons in the Phantasm website, and we're going to basically search for Facebook, and here's the icon that we need. Click on it. Did I click the right one? No, I didn't. There we go, that's the right one. And then you see this here, this class and this icon tag here. We're gonna copy that, and then we're gonna go in here and paste it, and that will make let's give it a little spacing here. There we go. And that will make your icon for Facebook show up. So click on save and go check our site now, and here it is showing right next to it. So everything works fine. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead, and it's already getting a little too long for this part of the video. Eventually we're gonna come back and fill out what's inside of the temporary body here, which is all temporary. It's, like I said, it's not real. This is why I made these marks, to kind of, you know, why I call it temporary body, just so it doesn't do anything else. And we're gonna come back and change all this on the next videos. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, or share it with anyone else that you think could be helped with these videos. Alright, and I'll see you in the next one.